So even though it is February of 2025 and I am firmly in my 2025 reading journal, I thought that I would do a little backtracking and show my 2024 reading journal, because I haven't filmed a flip through of that, and I thought, well, maybe somebody might be interested in it. So my 2024 reading journal was in this is a Plum Paper Company planner, actually. And what I did was, when I ordered the planner, I had these grand plans of having like daily logs where I'd write about each book, and then do like little spreads on the books in blank pages. And then it just sort of evolved into just being a giant scrapbook. And a few months into 2024, I ended up having to take the coil off, remove all the weekly pages and all of like the plannery type stuff, and just add more white paper. And it really just was a bit of a Frankenstein moment. But I think it turned out beautifully. I made my own tea-stained paper as like the theme. And so I kind of had this antique look as the theme. It really wasn't a theme. It just kind of, I tried to have a theme basically. But I didn't think it out before starting the journal, so we have it. It is what it is. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. So let's just go ahead. But it got so thick that I had to start putting a band on it. So if you can look at the side here, you can see pretty much what it should be over here versus what it ended up being. So it is quite thick. Let's go ahead and open it up and we'll take a look at how I had it set up. So my front page, let's see, has like my information on it. It just basically has my name and "This book belongs to you, please return." So then this is part of the planner stuff that was left over, because I kept these pages, which were for like special dates. But what I ended up doing was putting down when books were coming out that I thought looked interesting. So the ones that are highlighted are obviously the ones that I read. So yeah. And then the next two pages they give you, Plum Paper gives you these blank boxes. So I just did overflow of upcoming releases. And then this is where the book journal starts. So most of my images came from like Pinterest or Google image searches, things like that. It's for personal use, so I don't feel like I should have to put copyright things on it. This is for personal use. But the pictures and stuff did come from Pinterest. Book journal. These were typewriter stamps, and they were from Amazon, and they sucked. They were little, it came in a little wooden box, and you open the wooden box, and then there's the stamps and their typewriter. None of them were centered on the stamps. They were miscut in a couple of places, and of course you don't realize what's going on until after you've used them for a while, and you're like, what's going on here? And anyway, not a good stamp set. Did not recommend. Definitely get the clear ones where you can see where you're laying it down. So then I have my splash page here with a quote for kind of like the overview of the year. "Reading forces you to be quiet in a world that no longer makes a place for that." John Green of The Fault in Our Stars. And so then I have like some journaling stuff. And again, I use those typewriter stamps throughout the book. So I have like typewriter stuff. This was my index. So I have like card catalog things. I thought my index would go across 2 pages, and it didn't. So I put another picture and quote here. "Something very magical can happen when you read a good book," from She Who Shall Not Be Named. It's such a shame when good stories come from depraved minds. I just putting that out there. Then we had Call Pile. I made these handouts in Canva myself. So proud of them. So this was Caw Pile. It's how I do my rating system. Then we had, this was my goal. I wanted to read 52 books last year. I read 100. And so that's my cat being ignored. I reached my goal on September the 11th. So each one of these stars, you see how like, there, 38. See how that stamp is off? Drives me crazy. They were not good stamps. This was my year in pixels. So I colored in a color for how many pages I read each day. If it's white, it means I didn't read that day. But yeah, on days I did read, I read a lot because there's a lot of green and a lot of purple. And a black dot means that I finished a book or two that day. This was my series tracker, which I need to go back and make sure I colored in everything. So these were the names of the series that I wanted to try last year. Black books means that they're like, It Ends With Us only had 2 books in the series, so I blacked out the other ones, if that makes sense. So some series, the 3rd book, like the Ruinous Love trilogy, that's Butcher and Blackbird, Leather and Lark, Scythe and Sparrow. The 3rd book is coming out this month. So obviously I couldn't finish that series last year. So there's that. And I made these clip arts came from Canva, and so did the fonts and things that I used. I tried to match the fonts to the fonts that were on the cover of the books. Horror books read. I had a goal of reading like, I think it's 30 here horror books in the year, and so these were all the horror books I read. I wanted to color it in, but then I was kind of like, no, I'm gonna leave it black and white. This side was, I colored in a book for every book I read, and so each color is a different month. There were 100 books on here, and I was determined to read 100 books. Even though my goal was 52, I still kind of held out hope that I wanted to read a lot more. So that's that. These were 24 books coming out in 2024 that I wanted to keep on my radar. I checked off the ones that I read. And then in these 2 little pockets that I made, these are like the book synopsis of what the books are. So if I can shimmy this out. So like Evergreen, which was up here, this was the book synopsis. So there's that. There we go. And these dates are the dates of when the books were released. These were the GoodReads winners for 2023. So they were books that I wanted to read, or, you know, look into at least. Some of them I did read. I read Britney Spears. I read Check and Mate this year, and I have plans to read Divine Rivals and Wayward. I need to pick up a copy of Hellbent before I read that one. And I keep meaning to read Fourth Wing. People keep talking about it, but I don't like dragons. I keep trying, but it hadn't happened yet. So in October, I did Spooklopathon, which was a reading game. So these were the instructions here. It was done by Becca on the Books, and who's a YouTuber. And so these were the instructions. Again, I made another little pocket to put them in. And then here was the game board that I printed out and glued in. This was my little marker. It's one of those Post-it flags that you can move around. These were the community shelf cards and the chance cards in these little envelopes that I made using the same tea-stained paper that I made. These were the chance card book lists. So these were all the books that I put onto the chance cards that, you know, I had a chance to pull playing the game. So these are the ones that I was picking from for that month. These were the community shelf prompts that I wrote onto the prompt community shelf cards. And then this is how the game played in the month of October. So roll number 1, I got these numbers on the dice. So this ended up being this book because I landed on orange. I got this from the library. So I had some library bonuses that month where my library holds came in. So I just kind of added them into the game. So then roll number 2 was this, and doubles. So I rolled again. So there's a doubles rolls, and these were the spaces I landed on. These were the books I chose. I did not get to every book that I chose. The ones that I did read, I put the little stars by. The ones I did not get to read, they went back on the TBR. I rolled at the beginning of the month and picked all the books at once, and then I tried to read through all of them. Didn't quite make it. This is one saucy looking demon here. Oh, he's feisty. Anyway, these stickers came from a book called The Antiquarian. It's a sticker book that you can find at Barnes & Noble or Amazon. Let's see, next page. This was a 2024 World's Smallest Book Clubs Reading Challenge, and I got through quite a few of them. You can see where I wrote the names of the books on the things. So that was kind of fun. And then these were the prompts just in a list, and I wrote the book names next to it. This was one that I made. I made a Taylor Swift bingo myself, and so each one of the little bingo spots is a name of one of her songs from the Eras tour. And so then the idea is that you try to read a book that somehow connects to the song or the title or something. So for example, number 18, Champagne Problems. I read Matthew Perry's memoir, where he talks a lot about his alcohol and drug problems. Let's see, what's another one? Mastermind. I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. She was definitely a mastermind. So you get the idea. So each one of these little bingo spots has a number, and then I put the book cover over here with the number on it so that you can see what matches. I really love this spread. I think it turned out very pretty. So then been reading a lot about like book talk books and tropes and things that appear in those book talk books. So these are just definitions of like common tropes in popular media right now. So things like grumpy sunshine, friends to lovers, second chances, things like that. And so each one has like the definition. So I looked them up and put the definitions with them. It is surprising once you know that a trope exists of where you see it pop up in other genres of fiction besides just romance. Because I am definitely reading a horror book right now, and we've definitely got grumpy sunshine in it. And I have seen some of the tropes of kidnapping, slow burn. I've seen slow burn in mystery novels. Have nothing to do with romance. It just has like a subplot, you know, so it's interesting. I thought this was just me being a nerd, basically. So my mid-year review, this was in January to June. So these were the number of books completed, pages read, minutes listened, average rating of a book, average time reading a book, best reading month, worst reading month. And then, of course, I picked my top-rated book, my surprise hit, and then my lowest-rated book. And then over on this side, I put the favorite characters from the books that I read that month, that period. So from January to June. Yeah, so that's that. I kind of, tried to pick a celebrity that would look like the character. So, like, Butcher and Blackbird, that's what they look like to me. Sloane Andrews from Chosen Ones. This is Leather and Lark. So this is Lachlan and that's Lark. The Dog from Alone by Megan E. Freeman. He was definitely one of my favorite characters. I love George, so he was her companion. Then we've got Alistair Lowe from All of Us Villains, All of Our Demise. Jade Daniels from My Heart is a Chainsaw, Linus Baker from The House on the Cerulean Sea, Naomi from Mexican Gothic, that was Vane from The Never King, Bowen from Hunt on Dark Waters. So yeah, those were my favorite characters during the mid-year. Then of course we do the book stats for mid-year. And so my book stats that I was following all last year were ratings, number of pages, book type, age level, year published, author race, the main couple, book genre, author gender, and audio length. So I did donut charts for those. I got sick of those donut charts by the end of the year, so I changed them this year. This was the end of the year review, so for July to December. Books completed, etc., etc. Top rated book, surprise hit, lowest rated book. These were the favorite characters for that 6 months. So let's see. Gemma from This Cursed House, Lucian from Boyfriend Material, Melanie from The House on Trad Street, Lily Bloom from It Ends With Us, Tess Claiborne, she was from the Sleep Tight by J.H. Marquardt, Evelyn Hugo, obviously. If she doesn't play Evelyn Hugo in the movie, I don't care. I will not watch that movie. She needs to be her. Padre Andreas from The Hacienda. Let's see, who's up here? Sonia McTavish, she was from Inheritance, which is the Lost Brides trilogy, which is so good. Weatherly Wilder from In the Hour of Crows, Maud from An Elderly Lady Up to No Good, and then Margaret from September House. So those were my favorite characters from that 6 months. Then these were the book stats for that part of the year. And so then we go into the year total book stats. So this was all the books, mid-year to end of year, all put together onto charts. Definitely read the most were adult books. Mostly 4-star books. Lots of freaking fairy tales and horror, obviously. Lots of novels. I read a lot of novellas, it looks like, and then it had to be like over 300 pages. So it was one or the other, really. Yeah. And the majority of my books, 63 of them, came from the last 5 years. So I need to start reading older books, I think. These were all the books that I read that year in 2024. So here they are. And this was the best book of 2024, my book bracket. So what I did was I chose my favorite book for the month. Every month I always did that. And then all I did was pit them against each other. So like January versus July, February versus August, and just floated on through. And honest to God, though, any book on this book bracket was a favorite book last year. Like top 12, y'all. It was really just got down to not only enjoyment but literary quality, and I really feel like Mexican Gothic, which was my winner last year, it hit every thing for literary quality and enjoyment and just beautiful writing. I loved that book. But like I said, any book on this book bracket was amazing. I really enjoyed every one of them. Book awards. Okay, so I made up my own book awards, kind of like the Oscars. So the hero of the year was Maddie in Alone. The villain of the year was the Dark One in Chosen Ones. The worst non-contender goes to Love Comes Softly. That book sucked. The one that was robbed was The House on the Cerulean Sea. That was definitely my second favorite book last year. Even though it didn't get that far in the book bracket, it was definitely, I will never forget that book. I loved it. Spiciest romance was Bowen and Evelyn. He is a telekinetic, and he did something with his abilities that just... Okay. Favorite fantasy world was New Athens. I love this book series. I actually had to slow myself down. I did not want to read them all at once. So I read a couple of them last year, and I'm going to read a couple more this year, but this was fantastic. I really love the world building in that. Most ageless historical read was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I want to read this book again. It was so good. I liked it. I just want to live in the golden age of Hollywood. Most memorable memoir was Matthew Perry. That was the best. I like reading memoirs, especially when they're read by the author on the audiobook. It makes the story feel more real. But his memoir was just so good. He wrote it beautifully. Most heartbreaking scene was the death of Ely. That's a Welsh name. Her name was Ely. In The Ghost Cat. Definitely. I was listening to it driving home, and I got into my driveway and just sat in my car and cried. Like, it was so sad. That was just the saddest death scene of the year for sure. And then the scariest horror, I definitely got to give it to The September House. Not because it was scary, but just some of the stuff in September House. The ghosts were scary, the bad ghosts at least. What was going on between the husband and wife was scary. The way the police at the end kind of tried to gaslight a character was scary. There was a lot of shit going on in The September House that it definitely stayed with me. I read a lot of horror, and that one kind of stayed with me.